Ja, wat stikstofbestuur betref,
So we're talking about nitrogen management today. I've bought this farm in 1992 and it was in a cattle system on natural grasses. So I was lucky enough to begin with a high carbon or higher carbon content than usual.
en daarna en met 'n klomp ondervinding van
Along with experience in direct seeding, we've already started direct seeding barley in 1984.
wel die grond in 'n ongebalanseerde toestand hier in die berg was, suur en so aan. En dit was eintlik
It was easy to start from there, making sure that the soil was balanced because although the carbon was high, the soil was still unbalanced, but it made it easier as a starting point.
buiteland toets, dan lê dit hier 4,5, dit kom nou met die begin dit al oor 5 gaan, jy weet dit.
The carbon was there to start off with, and with the minimum tillage and the lucerne systems that was in place in the area, we've moved forward. Our organic material content is over just above 4, going on 5 in certain areas since we've started, and that is really positive.
As ek op pad om na 6% organiese materiaal plus.
So the changes to conservation agriculture has been coming in for a while now, and there's a lot of knowledge available, so there's no reason to be uneducated concerning the different aspects of conservation agriculture. So what the soil, concerning the soil, I'm trying to aim at 6% organic material in the soil. At this stage, some of the fields are going just over 5, but we're not at 6 yet, and so that's what we're aiming for, and it's going to take some time to get there. So one of the things that you have to have in place is a plan, and this is where nitrogen management plays an important role, because that's one of the ways to get there at what we're aiming at. So our aim is to use as little as possible chemical fertilizer in our system, with the ultimate aim to try and get away from it completely. Nitrogen is a really important element for the plant if it's done correctly, but if you overdose, it is very detrimental to nature. With the overdosing, you lose nitrogen oxide to the atmosphere and nitrates that's leaching out of the soil, which is all detrimental and poisonous to nature. So for us, the carbon in the soil is directly related to the nitrogen management, as well as the organic material. The higher the organic material content of the soil and the carbon, the lower amounts of nitrogen you need. So how do you know what's in the soil? By measuring it. We did have it analyzed so that we know what our nitrogen content in the soil is and our carbon. That is the base from which we work. So we analyze the soil for the nitrates and ammoniums. So we know what we have, and we work from there to determine the amount of fertilizer we will have to apply. So currently, when we test, we have about 150 to 250 kilograms of ammonium and nitrate fertilizer available in our soils. In our conditions, that amount of available nitrogen in the soil comes with about 4 to 4.5% organic material in the soil. And it goes along with having a cover on top of the soil. You need some moisture, and that will help with the process of delivering that nitrogen to the plant. As we see it, the higher our carbon is in the soil organic material, the lower our inputs can be, bringing the whole system into balance. The best way I see to get to that humus part of the organic material that you want is through balancing of your soils, crop rotation and drastic crop rotation, minimal disturbance of the soil, and soil biology. So getting into each of the four, the first one, balancing your soils, is really important, and we do that through liming, rock phosphate, making sure that the balance of macro and micronutrients is correct. When it comes to the different minerals, calcium is a really important one in our view, and we're aiming to get between 65 and 75% calcium in the soil. Just be careful, if you're going over 75%, you could cause considerable damage to your soil. So that is concerning the balancing of your soils. And the next one, minimal soil disturbance, is really important. You really have to aim to disturb the soil as little as possible, because working the soil is probably one of the worst things you can do on a farm in terms of the organic material content and the carbon content, because doing soil disturbance causes carbon to go up in the air as carbon dioxide, and that is a lose-lose situation. It also destroys the biology in the soil. It breaks up your fungus network in the soil, kills earthworms, and moisture loss. You could lose between 15 and 25 millimeters of rain with a single pass over the soil. That's one of the reasons why we've crossed over to using a disc seeder, that we ensure that there's a more homogeneous spread of the biology in the soil, and so much lower soil disturbance that can destroy these networks and biology in the soil. With the old tine system that we used, we sort of reached the plateau at between 4 and 4.5% organic material. So that's one of the reasons why we're trying out the disc, to see if we can get another step up to the 6% organic material that we want in the soil. So on this farm, we use calcium and earthworms to do the ploughing work on the soil. If you have your calcium percentages in the soil at the figures that I've mentioned, that helps to loosen up the soil and open it up so it is easier to plant. So if calcium is, for instance, is 40% and magnesium is also 40%, then the soil becomes hard, and then you have to work the soil to loosen it up again, and then you're back to square one. So next one, we're going to look at crop rotation. For us, is important to alternate grasses and broadleaf crops, and to help stimulate the biology in the soil as well, and keep enough material on top of the soil to help with moisture retention and keeping the soil cooler and moist. And even if you do that, even if you pull out a weed, you'll find earthworms underneath that weed. So having roots in the soil is really important, because that is what feeds the biology through the secretion of the sugar compounds. Our crop rotation system might not be the most ideal one, but it works for us. So in one part of the farm, we have a cash crop system that is 2 years of wheat, followed by either a radish or a canola, and then go back to 2 years of wheat. So with the canola, we're actually looking to look at incorporating another legume with the canola crop that you can separate at harvest, because planting the broadleaf crops gives us the opportunity to break disease cycles and manage weeds for the following wheat years. So another part of the farm, we're in a cash crop pasture system, the old traditional one with lucerne, but with our rainfall that is relatively constant throughout the year here up against the mountain, we can actually do a mix of lucerne with white clover, subterranean clover. Sometimes we chuck in a little bit of canola. There's some veg that comes up, and it gives a good predominantly legume mix. So following the pasture, after about 4 years, we go, 5 years, we go into 2 years of wheat followed again by a canola or a radish, and then wheat again, maybe 2 years depending on the economics of the ostriches. So when that last wheat comes off in October that year, we directly plant into that stubble our pasture mix. We don't wait for the next year to plant it. It goes in immediately. Then on a very small part of the farm, which is difficult soil, very rocky and heavy on machinery, we have a shorter rotation of 2 years of wheat followed by 2 to 3 years of the pasture. When it comes to the biology, if you've got the crop rotation and the minimal disturbance of the soil in place, you create a habitat and food for the biology. But then if your soil is not balanced, it doesn't work that well. So in the end, to have biology, you need all the others as well. So in order to increase the biology, you need all these, as I said, in place. And the more humus you build, the better the biology. So how do we increase the biology? It's not that easy. There's a lot of products on the market. You can test for the biology and work it from there, but there's a lot of views currently, and it doesn't make it easier to get to the right answer. But it gives us the knowledge that is coming in at a high pace currently, and it will make it easier in the years to come. We are currently then striving to incorporate more organic-based fertilizer rather than chemical-based fertilizer in the system. And we try and soften the chemical effect by adding molasses and sugars and humates in order to have a softer product that goes into the soil that is softer on the biology as well. The reason why I say this is if you have been working with your hands, you've got a little bit of cuts, you put your hand into a fertilizer bin and you feel that sting, it burns you, it will burn the soil as well, or the biology in the soil. So our aim is to spray fertilizer that doesn't burn. If I put my hand into a liquid fertilizer drum and it burns, it's not good enough. We need a softer approach. With the humates and fish extract, you can really soften up harsh chemical products. The next step is to produce your own nitrogen through legumes or legume cover crops, putting out of compost or manure. That's the way you boost the biology and let it grow. When it comes to going over a field, think what you're doing. Just don't, if you see one aphid, go and spray everything. Really think about all the actions that you do. So going over a field, really think about it, because spraying for that one aphid you've seen will kill the aphid, but it also kills all the food that the predators can use, and it kills the predators as well. So you're putting yourself back to 10, 20 years ago. So next is looking at nutrition. If we look at the nutrition, even in this crop that I'm standing in, this wheat crop I'm standing in, is that we use manure, chicken manure, raw chicken manure, that we spread in summer. We've got enough biology in the soil to compost that manure. So we spread about 1 to 1.2 tons per hectare, and especially in this mountainous area, potassium is a problem, and that fills it up nicely with through the chicken manure, instead of buying the potassium in a fertilizer, which is much more expensive. Yes, we do lose some through up into the air, but it's very little. So what we've done here is we've broadcasted the 1 ton of manure, then I've planted with a mixture of 40 kilograms of monoammonium phosphate and 20 kilograms of potassium sulfate. So this mixture is planted with the disc seeder, and that's at the putting down the fertilizer along with the seed, and this is basically how we treat our canola as well. And then I have a liquid delivery system on the planter, and through that we put down a mixture of urea, humates, sugars, etc. So we eventually end up with around 13 kilograms of nitrogen a hectare in total. So then, following that, we came in with another 7 kilograms of urea in a mixture with humates and flavina sugar. So we make sure that we add that to the mixture when we spray for weeds at that first spray, just to soften it up. So we believe that you have to put that chemical into a black liquid, let's call it that. So currently at this stage, just before heading, we're at 20 kilograms of nitrogen. So of that 20 kilograms of nitrogen in total, only 4.5 is chemical nitrogen, or nitrogen out of a bag, if you want to call it that. The rest is all added with carbon with it, and that is how we approach our nutrition program. So what we're aiming to do is rather give less at a time, but more often, very much like a full feed ration for a feedlot. And the idea is not to put down like 40 in at a time, so that all the bugs run to the nitrogen source, and in that way you sort of spoil them with the amount of nitrogen you're giving. You want them to do the work in producing the nitrogen for you. So that's why we aim to give less but more often, very similar to a cattle in a feedlot. You don't give them feed once a week, you give them feed every day. We do that in order to try and get away from chemistry. And if your soil is black, and the blacker it is, the easier it's going to be coming out of giving too much fertilizer and other chemistry, and maybe get to a point where you don't need any of it. Black, I call it, if you make your soil black, it buffers a lot of things, and it helps to smooth over a lot of issues. And from there on, it doesn't mean that you don't have to balance your soils. That's still important, but it makes it much easier to farm. The main aim is to look after nature, because then nature will look after you. But if you go against nature, it will take you out, that's for sure.